Millennials reportedly in over their heads with debt, spilling over the $1 trillion mark by the end of 2018. What's the culprit? Student loans. That's the problem here. Let's bring in economist Peter Marisi, market watcher Scott Martin, and we have Deirdre standing by as well. First of all, Peter, you first. How do we get that number down? $1 trillion worth of debt just for millennials. How do we get it down?
Well, I think we're going to have some debt forgiveness. Something like 40% of young college graduates are not in positions that require a college diploma. If you're working at Starbucks or driving for Uber or what have you, a college debt of $50,000 or $100,000 is absolutely insurmountable. Where do I get the money from? Well, the colleges that gave them the bogus degrees.
Okay.
They're sitting on huge amounts of assets.
Okay.
Let's sue them for fraud.
So it's debt forgiveness with the college that gave them the lousy degree to pay. Scott Martin, how would you get that number down? $1 trillion worth of debt? How do you get it down?
I don't know if I'd go as far as to sue them for fraud, but I appreciate the effort, Peter. What I'd probably do, Stuart, is really tie the colleges to really helping these kids, men and women, getting some rate of return. And rate of return, by that I mean getting them into a job or getting them into a job market that actually is going to get them money to pay back the loans. You know, a lot of things that I run into, Stuart, as a financial advisor, is folks that have these loans, about $30,000 on average per borrower, and they don't have the jobs or the well-paying jobs after paying for all that education that helps them pay back the loans. You know, a lot of these folks are carrying these loans into their 40s, even sometimes 50s, because of the fact that the colleges haven't educated them well enough, haven't hooked them up with the labor market or the employment market to where they can actually get employment to pay back what they've borrowed.
Okay, that's get them a better job, but that's way down the road. That's in the future. Deirdre?
There are also some people who say give students more time to pay it back, but I do understand what Peter's saying. Even if you're working at Starbucks, presumably you're not going to hopefully be working there for a decade, but if you go to Germany, I think you have 20 years to pay back your debt. If you go to the UK, you have 30 years. So Australia is the same, sort of in between. So it seems like other countries try to give the students a little more time to get on their feet.
So spread it out.
Spread it out.
Peter Marisi, what's your reaction to that?
Well, it is actually getting spread out, and it's not really enough. You know, if you're making $30,000 a year and you have a $30,000 student loan debt, and by the way, if you're making $30K now, you'll probably be doing the same in 5 or 10 years. It just doesn't work out. As for the future, my feeling is that colleges have huge amounts of assets that are basically debt-free, and they should be able to mortgage these to provide half of the capital on student loans. If we did that, then colleges would become infinitely more focused on educating people and providing useful stuff. How would they pay for it? College tuition is up since 2009, twice as much as health insurance.
Jeez.
And most of that is for Club Med facilities.
Yes,
you know, students don't go to class very much.
Yep. Yep, I know what you're talking about because I've had.
They really don't.
Kids going to college.
Well, it's to impress the parents, I think, right? When you come in and they say we have this new swimming pool and this new cafeteria, but maybe that doesn't go towards the degree.
You're exactly right. That's exactly what they shower students with: 24/7 Japanese food in the refectory. I mean, good Lord, come on. I'm out of time, Peter. Thank you very much, sir. I'm going to move on to another issue with you, Scott. I want to talk Big Pharma because top execs from big pharma companies are on Capitol Hill right now. They're testifying about drug prices. Let me give you a quick example. AbbVie, they make Humira, which is the best-selling drug in the world for arthritis. They put the price up 9% in January last year, another 6% in January this year. How are they going to justify that? What are they going to do about this, Scott?
Well, it's hard. I mean, that's one area, Stuart, that President Trump has talked a lot about is drug pricing reform. And I'll tell you, you know, we're starting to see the chips move on the board when it comes to pharma. You know, you're starting to see some of these smaller pharma companies. So you talked about big pharma. Big pharma, Stuart, buying smaller pharma that have drugs that they can jack up in the meantime before, say, they go generic, because they have a little bit of a leeway there, a little bit of a runway on the patent, for example. So what you're starting to see is, you know, I think the government, rightfully so, you know, going after the Mylans and so forth with respect to some of those drugs that they have pricing power on because they have the market cornered and therefore are somewhat, let's say, a little bit erroneous in the fact that they jack up the prices on those who most need it.
Yeah, okay. Now, you're hot on some smaller drug companies with experimental products. Give me the name of a company, a drug company, I believe the merger possibilities. Give me a name and tell me what they do.
Yeah, there's two of them. So yesterday we saw a big deal with Spark Pharmaceuticals being bought by Roche. And I think there's a couple other ones, Stuart, that we own for our clients and myself alone that are similar in the sense that, we're not going to see a deal tomorrow. And these are risky, in the sense that, they have some hot prospects on their books. But I think there's a couple names that are interesting. Bluebird Bio is one that's in gene therapy. BLUE is the symbol, gene therapy and oncology, as well as Portola. Yeah. Portola is more focused on blood disorders and things like that, blood clotting and so forth. And the interesting thing about both of those companies, Stuart, especially Portola, they're small. And so what happens is, like I mentioned earlier, is that some of these big companies that don't want to develop the technology realize some of these smaller companies have good things coming down the road. They're potential takeover candidates at some point this year, I believe.
Can I just go back to Bluebird Bio? They're in the gene therapy business, like the one yesterday that, what was the name of the one yesterday? Spark.
Spark Pharmaceuticals, yes.
Yeah,
and Spark Pharmaceuticals, it's so interesting,
what does Blue Holdings have? What therapy are they working on? Against what condition?
They're working on... Yeah, they're working on gene therapy to effectively try to cure cancer, believe it or not. So they're working on kind of changing the genes before, and here's the other thing, too, about Spark. What's interesting about Spark yesterday is everybody was concerned about a cure for blindness that Spark was working on. They have some hemophilia drugs, too, in their pipeline that they got purchased for. So you're looking at a lot of concepts with a lot of these companies, which is why they're very risky and speculative. But the reality is a lot of these bigger companies like the Roches, like the BMYs, Bristol Myers, and so forth, AbbVie's too, they need to buy these smaller companies that have all this research in their pipeline because they're not going to spend the money to do it themselves.
Okay, one more for you. What do you make of pharma companies using and partnering with social media influencers, people who influence people, to sell their products to followers? It sounds a little dangerous because you don't know what these products are.
Right. I agree with you there. The influencers certainly aren't experts. And I think you're right. It depends who you're getting your information from these days. Hopefully people aren't going on social media and saying, hey, somebody I follow on Twitter or Instagram, that is, as the kids say, somebody that they're following on those platforms, Stuart, isn't somebody that's basically getting them to do treatment or getting them to take a drug because they back it. So I would tell people to do their own research before they follow something or take something because Kim Kardashian thinks it's a good idea.
Well said, Scott Martin. We appreciate that. Good news. See you later. Thanks a lot.